Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 147 of the Salvaggio and Cratty Sports Podcast. If you're on a Wednesday night, June 14th, 7:06 p.m. The NBA and NHL seasons are over. That stinks, but it was a bridge we had to cross. It was going to happen eventually. And now we move forward, and thankfully we won't have to wait too long, as I imagine things will kick up within the next week or so, and then we'll have the NHL and NBA drafts and so forth. Ryan, how are we doing?
I'm doing good. I've seen some people not flustered, but a little upset on Twitter that we are now officially in just baseball mode, which if you are a fan of the Boston Red Sox is a terrifying mode to be in right now because there's not a lot going right with this team as we'll jump into the moments of the week. Kind of a lackluster NBA finals, kind of a lackluster Stanley Cup final. I feel like we kind of figured how both those series were going to go, maybe a little less with the Stanley Cup finals with how well Florida had been playing. But in the end, at least for my sake, the two teams I wanted to win came out on top. So that was a positive to say the least.
And you nailed your winner for the NHL again, making you further the hockey expert.
Big time hockey guy.
Yep. But moments of the week kind of have just like a double moment of the week here.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the bigger stories in the past week, and it was the fact that Matt Dermody was even close to starting a game for the Red Sox for some reason.
Yeah, I don't get it. For those who may have missed it, again, if you're living under a rock, this happened last Friday. Red Sox made the move to call up 32-year-old journeyman Matt Dermody to make his first ever start against the Cleveland Guardians. Wasn't terrible. He was a little better than I thought he was going to be. But the on-field stuff was not the reason why it caught so much attention. What instead was almost as soon as he was added to the 40-man roster, a story broke of an anti-gay tweet that Dermody had back in 2021. Today, we found out, I don't know if you saw this, I just added it to the outline moments before we jumped on. The story doesn't stop there. Apparently, this was from an NBC Sports Boston's John Tomasi, an article that he wrote earlier today that talked about more stuff Dermody has on his Twitter, tweets that going way back, I think 2011, posts, likes, retweets, and replies that deal with vaccine denialism, anti-trans sentiments, sympathy for January 6th criminals, and a QAnon-inspired conspiracy theories to go along with also a tweet that mentioned of course, the N-word, which if you look at Dermody was, I think his reasoning was he was rapping a Biggie Smalls song. So that's why I posted lyrics to a Biggie Smalls song. So that was his reasoning for that. Look, we're not going to get into the politics or anything like that. We're not going to, because that's what we don't do here, but just a completely, I don't know how I want to word it, like untimely, like there's no reason to do this. To bring this guy up. It's just another stain on this season that has just been in a tailspin, for lack of a better term. Makes no sense, especially when right after the game, the Red Sox DFA'd him. So clearly they knew he was not going to be here for long. The thing I was kind of not trying to justify or anything, but I thought it was interesting when we talked about like a move the Bruins made, I can't remember the kid that they brought in earlier in the season, but
Miller.
Yeah, it's a move similar to that, but at least that one, if you were stupid and were trying to defend that one, you could have defended that. Okay, maybe the kid has some skill. He's young, so maybe down the line he could help you. This move makes no sense because, again, it's a 32-year-old guy that wasn't going to stick here. So out of all the people you could have called up in Worcester, this is the guy you go with. The thing, too, that came out, according to the story, the one of the first ones that was posted, the Red Sox were, quote, unaware of Dermody's tweet when they signed him in January. But, of course, after becoming aware, they met with him and had him do all this anti-discrimination stuff, this harassment training that took place in March. I don't know how you don't have a background check on this guy before you sign him. Now, of course, after all this stuff comes out and after you sign him, then you do your background check and say, oh, wait a minute. I saw another comment today that Chaim Bloom now, of course, is like, oh, I wish I kind of look better into it because I'm starting to now realize that bringing this guy in, it really, really hurts some people. It's like, yeah, no shit, man. Like, you need to do a more solid background check. The fact that he's still even on the roster, he's currently making a start in Worcester, which I think is Worcester's Pride Night, if I'm right. I may have saw that on Twitter, so that's kind of not funny, lack of a better term thing, but just kind of an ironic thing there. I did see too that if Dermody's still stuck on the Red Sox roster, if he wasn't DFA'd right after that Cleveland game, he would have pitched. I think last night was the Red Sox Pride Night. So he would have made that start too. So that would have been an interesting thing to see. But again, it just goes into the fact that we talked about, we'll kind of jump into the quick little Red Sox segment that I wanted to get to. talking about just how tone deaf this team is, not knowing the situation, like not just being aware of anything. I can't wrap my head around why this guy was brought in the first place. Just taking a backseat to all the off-field problems. Before his start, 30 games, a 5.60 ERA, 27 in the third innings of work. Like I said, a 32-year-old journeyman who had never been able to stick with any club he was on. Like, what is the point of bringing in a guy like this? You can't tell me there were better, younger options that could have, gotten a start. I saw some people say, give a kid like Rio Gomez, who was, the late Pedro Gomez's son. He was having a pretty good year down in the minors. He was actually called up to Worcester to replace Dermody when he made the start last week. Give that kid a chance. Like, that would have at least been a good story. Just some sort of good publicity for this team and something positive to talk about. But instead, in a season that's had plenty of negatives, this is just another, like I said, massive stain on this team, on this franchise. And again, makes you question what exactly the leadership is actually doing. And if they're even paying attention to anything. Clearly they're not, like I said, with not being able to do a background check on the guy and knowing the situation before you even sign him.
I mean, the skill level of the player, regardless, you just shouldn't have people like this in your organization. Never mind when the guy sucks.
He does. Yep.
Like, and he's 32. Like, how can you do this during Pride Month of all months?
That's the thing too. It's like the call up itself is bad, but then you take a further step back and you remember, oh, that's what, the month of June is. Like, just absolutely horrible timing. And maybe some people will argue that, like, oh, he was the easy move to make because he would have made the start in Worcester that night. You get a guy that's ready to go and doesn't have to miss, like, something stupid like that. I can't see many people defending it, or really nobody has, because again, it's just a stupid move. It's what's happened this whole season. You get what you pay for when you bring in bums like this. Like, it's a move that doesn't make any sense from the personality standpoint of Dermody, and then again for the future of the team. Like, it's telling that what they thought of this guy, that I've never seen a guy DFA'd right after the game ends. Like, I don't know if you have or anything like that. I can't remember the last time I've seen something like usually a couple hours go by or a day goes by. Then you see, like, oh, they DFA'd and bring another guy. But like right after the game was over, the tweet came out. I remember seeing, like, oh, he's been DFA'd. And then he sticks with the team too, which is, again, just absolutely stupid. Like, you had a chance to just flat out release this bum, and he's still making starts in Worcester and, still catching the eyes of people for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, I just don't understand how you have the start of these background checks in March and you're not just like, hey, this guy isn't going to change the direction of our organization in really any positive way.
Nope.
Why don't we just get rid of him and save ourselves the PR nightmare? I will never understand why things like this even happen.
Yeah, it's just management asleep at the wheel.
Like the Mitchell Miller situation, like they signed him because he's a really good hockey prospect, and they thought they could get away with it, and they couldn't. So yeah. This guy,
again, like, that would make sense. There's
no justifying. There's no justifying.
Nope. And that's what, like I said, it's just wrong with this team. Like I said, we'll jump into the Reds unless you had any other thoughts on this in particular. Just a quick Red Sox minute to start and a quick Celtics minute, because there are a couple of things to touch on there. Like I alluded to, the Red Sox, their season is pretty much spiraling. 33-35 coming in tonight, a rain delay right now with the third game of the Rockies series, 14 games out of first place in the East. Only 5.5 games back in the wild card, which kind of scares me, as we'll get into in a second. Because like I said last week or 2 weeks ago when we talked about the Red Sox, maybe that the rest of the league has been so average that I am kind of worried this team is heading in the exact same spot that they headed last year and might do the exact same thing at the trade deadline they did last year. But after what you've seen the last couple of weeks, we talked about it, the Little League home run they gave up against the Rays, and just not being able to do the simple thing of field the baseball. Like, their defense, as I talked about last week, has been the worst in baseball pretty much at every position. The Dermody situation, you take 2 out of 3 against the Yankees, which was, to some people a nice little weekend series there. But to me, it's you beat up a wounded Yankees team that didn't have Aaron Judge. So hooray to that. And now you're potentially on the verge of getting swept by one of the worst teams in baseball. I think the worst team in the National League in the Colorado Rockies. Alex Cora is trying to throw a Hail Mary here, switching up the defense, saying that Kike is no longer going to play short, which is a good sign. We talked about that last week. Again, you don't have a lot of options, but just kind of, like I said, a last-ditch effort to get him off the position is good. Another one that I like, Justin Turner is going to play more first base than Tristan Casas, because I am on the verge of just saying, put Tristan Casas' ass in Worcester for the rest of the year, because he is providing you nothing at this point. And then a shocker to everyone. following the situation. Adalberto Mondesi, an update on him, has been shut down from all baseball activities. Kind of crazy, Mike, that a guy that is coming off of a torn ACL, playing a middle infield position, and speed is the name of his game, is not going to be back anytime soon. That's a wild thing that I think no one could have predicted at the start of this season. And no one on this show did, I don't think. I think you and I both pegged him for playing the majority of the season and being a huge contributing factor to this team.
Yeah, things are a bit of a shit show right now, but I really do like what Cora is starting to do because maybe focusing less on defense will help Tristan Cautious, hit better. I don't know. Kike Hernandez, a lot of people have been complaining about him for a while, so I like the change at shortstop. And I think Justin Turner will be fine at first. So I like the steps they're taking. And I didn't have a chance to read it because I saw it in passing while I was working today. But The Athletic wrote about how management is approaching Cautious' defensive improvement and how they're going to attack that. So
yeah,
I there right now, but this team is just I can't even think of a good adjective for them.
It is as it's cliche to say the old time the Bears are what we thought they were, the Red Sox are what we thought they were. No one kind of predicted them to be anything not worthwhile, but you know what I mean, an average baseball. But they've been average to below average. I think I saw the same Casas article you were talking about, and I found that interesting because I talked about they want to get Casas' headspace of in his pregame routines, whatever this means, going over more situations that are going to actually happen in the game. That kind of stuck out to me. We know Casas is a little bit of a not weird guy, but he does his own things, like the sunbathing stuff that maybe had some people having some problems last year. I've seen some people kind of question the he paints his nails thing, which who cares about that? But I did find that interesting. I'm what are you doing in your pregame situation? What is everyone has all their own different things, of course. But that was just kind of stood out to me. What are you practicing pregame that you're not going to see in a game? Because that was the big takeaway I saw, that the coaches want him to focus on more game situations that are actually going to happen. I can't even begin to imagine what he's doing pregame unless he's going out there and taking ground balls at short or second base or I don't know what that even means to begin with.
Yeah, it's actually interesting that you mentioned the potential distractions pregame for Cautious, because I have to imagine that factors into it a little bit.
You would think.
I don't have a problem with the nails or the sunbathing. It's just the fact that maybe his mind is on different things more so than the game.
Yeah, you got to wonder. Yep.
Do it somehow, find a way to lock it in a little bit more why you do that. I don't know how. I'm not Tristan Cautious either, but something's got to change in his approach. And part of it is he's young, so there's going to be some growing pains.
Absolutely,
it's hard you don't see a lot of power hitting corner infielders come in to be stud defenders right away, especially first baseman. So I don't know. I'm not super worried about it, but I like that they're being proactive, and we'll see how it progresses.
Yeah, they got, like you said, they got to do something to try to salvage it. I just, like I said, the last Red Sox thought I have is I hope, you never want a team to just flat out suck. Don't get me wrong here, but again, I don't want this to go in the same direction it went last year, where the rest of the league is average as you are, and you're sitting at the trade deadline, you're still kind of around a playoff spot. And we're back here where we were last year with Chaim Bloom going, okay, well, maybe if we get a couple of pieces here and there, we get some guys back from injuries, we'll make a late playoff. But no, this is what this team is. The people that are still shocked I've seen on Twitter, they're like, oh, how can you take 2 out of 3 from the Yankees, but then potentially get swept by the Rockies? Because this team sucks. That's it's plain and simple. And it's what we thought they were going to be. So I am fully on board. I know, again, we're, I think 49, maybe 48 now days out from the August 1st trade deadline. I don't care where they are at it. I don't care if they're even within a wild card spot, because this team is just too inconsistent. There's too many question marks. And we talked about it when the season started. How many things had to go? Chris Sale had to stay healthy. Your rookies had to produce. You had to get big production from guys like Christian Arroyo and some question marks, and Kike Hernandez, guys like that, bounce back seasons. And everything that we talked about needing to go right is starting to unravel, or already has unraveled, with Hernandez's bad defense, Chris Sale getting hurt again. You had some young guys step up, which is good. Yoshida has kind of obviously filled a role and been one of their best players, but you still have way too many inconsistencies. So I'm fully on board with, again, super early. Once we get to the trade deadline, though, know that you're a bad baseball team. Don't do what you did last year and try to salvage anything and go into it and buy a couple of things. Maybe you try to buy a couple prospects here and there if something becomes available, but you should be looking to sell off as many guys as you can and try to grow that farm system like Chaim Bloom likes to do. So like, I'd be looking just to throw him out there. Like James Paxton's a UFA at the end of this season. Kike Hernandez is, probably going to be gone at the end of this season. Justin Turner's got a player option. Nick Pavetta's got 1 year left of arbitration before he hits the market. Same thing with Christian Arroyo. Definitely guys I'd be looking to move. Reese McGuire, I know they brought him in last season, but I saw the Marlins might be in the market for some catching depth with their struggles at that position. Maybe that's a team you send him to, or just look to send him to. And I don't know, maybe I'm crazy for this one. I want to get your thoughts on. I don't know if you've seen his recent play. I'm sure you saw that he got benched a couple nights ago. If a team comes calling on Alex Verdugo, he's only got 1 year left of arbitration, 2024, UFA in 2025. I don't want to say he looks like a guy that's been checked out. Again, had a play last night where he gets thrown out at the plate for not sliding, tries to, run around the tag. Like I said, he got benched the other night. I don't know if he's a guy that, his head's in the right place right now. There has been some struggles here and there. Wouldn't be opposed if he's a guy that can get you a decent return. Maybe you look to move him just because I think there might be some uncertainty starting to creep in with him a little bit.
Yeah, and I wonder if Bloom wants to move him more so than he did like a week or two ago too with these recent developments. I would trade him in the right deal. And my approach in terms of like not doing what you did last year is you have much more of a reason not to do what you did last year. Evers is locked up. Bogarts is gone. If Aldi is gone, you don't have guys like that as trade assets anymore.
Exactly.
So if you're not going to make the playoffs, you should have a much easier time moving guys like, the aforementioned names. Plain and simple.
Even if this team does like somehow sneak into a playoff spot, do you envision them going on a deep run?
No.
Like, exactly. This is a way different looking team than that team that surprised everyone a couple of years back and ended up losing to Houston in the ALC. Like, this team's going to get smoked with whoever they play in the playoffs. Like, I know I said that the rest of the league has been pretty average too, but like, you got to look at it in the long sense of you're not going to get past these top teams. Like Tampa Bay, you run into them, you're going to be in trouble. Texas has stayed the path. They've been excellent this season. You run into them, they're going to, give you problems, I think. So both in agreement here. Like, don't do the same problems you had last year. Like, just coast into it if you can and sell off these pieces that probably aren't going to be here next year. Because again, we knew going into this year that this year was all about next year. So keep that mindset if that's where you're at. Continue to, I don't know, even know, like, not suck, but you get what I'm getting at here. Like, maybe just try to clean up the brand a little bit. Don't be bringing in guys that, have massive off-field problems, depending on how you look at them, and could be potential distractions for your franchise and make you look a little worse than you already do.
Yeah, agreed. Very reasonable.
I think so.
Yeah. Next, as you mentioned, we have Celtics in a quick NBA little segment here as the season is wrapped up. Then we'll go to NHL and of course the big news surrounding the Patriots. So first the Celtics, Charles Lee is the latest hire in the coaching staff. Yeah,
the Celtics continue to be proactive after nabbing Sam Cassell from the Philadelphia 76ers last week. They get another top associate head coach, assistant coach, depending on what the title was, from another conference rival, being the Bucks. Obviously don't know a lot about Charles Lee compared to Sam Cassell from last week, the little tidbits I was able to get. Lee was also a finalist for the Toronto and Detroit head coaching jobs before those were filled. Ends up as the Celtics lead assistant head coach, has been in the NBA as an assistant since 2014, spending a few years with Al Horford in the Atlanta Hawks before joining Mike Budenholzer and the Milwaukee Bucks in 2018. And with Milwaukee, of course, he won a championship in 2021. And just another guy like I have here with plenty of experience and, knowing what it takes to win a title, obviously with that win in 2021, and then coaching a superstar, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Another guy to have that's, good on Joe Mazzulla's staff, a guy that's got plenty of experience, knows what it takes to win in this league. That seems to be what the Celtics are going for. And I'm glad they're kind of sticking to their word of, wanting to get some veteran leadership guys to build around Joe Mazzulla. From what I saw across NBA Twitter, all the analysts and, big name reporters, seems to be another really good grab for the Celtics.
Yeah. Like Sam Cassell, I don't really see anything to be like upset about with this hire. So works for me.
Good agreement there. One of the bigger news tidbits that broke kind of before we got maybe an hour or two before we jumped on here. Bradley Beal, could the Celtics be in play for him? This was from Shams Charania earlier today, saying, quote, the Washington Wizards and Bradley Beal will work together to find a trade for the three-time All-Star. If the team elects to reset the roster in the near future, league sources tell me and Joshua Robbins. I did see Brian Windhorst too before we jumped on here. He had a tweet with the thunder and lightning starting here. That's not good. Hopefully, knock on wood. I don't know if you can hear that over my microphone. That was pretty loud. But no, back on it. I heard Windhorst say that the Celtics reportedly aren't interested in looking to make a deal for Beal. Didn't mean to rhyme there either. They're more focused on extending Jaylen Brown, which I've seen some people kind of say, okay, wink, wink, the Celtics aren't in on Bradley Beal. Also saw some reports that said maybe the asking price is going to be too high. So maybe the Celtics could get lucky there. I saw Felber Maz's producer, Jimmy Stewart, say, maybe Marcus Smart, Malcolm Brogdon, Peyton Pritchard, and a couple of first round picks. If that's all it's going to take to get it done, I do that in a heartbeat. But of course, there are going to be the questions of how do you make the salary stuff work? Do the Celtics want to, maybe stick with Brown, pivot towards Beal? I'm sure we've talked about Bradley Beal before. People remember your thoughts. This guy, maybe it's changed with how the situation has kind of developed with the Celtics. Are you still, if a deal is there, interested in bringing him in? Would you move Brown for him? If that would have to be the case, what are your thoughts there?
No, I think he's a little too old at this point to move for Brown.
Mm-hmm.
I think the ship might have sailed on Bradley Beal.
Okay.
If you can make it work without Brown, though, of course, I'm in much more favor with than not.
Mm-hmm.
But can you keep Tatum, Brown, and Beal under the salary cap is the big question.
Exactly. That's where the water gets muddied a little bit. Like, I'm with you. Like, if it's like that deal I mentioned where it's Smart, Brogdon, like I think Brogdon's probably going to move. Like, if you have to move a guard this offseason, I know last week I said I would want it to be Marcus Smart, but I think the move the Celtics are probably going to make, obviously outside of Pritchard, because I think he's gone. Probably look to trade Malcolm Brogdon. Like, I saw somebody say if Toronto blows it up, maybe you do a Brogdon for OG Anunoby, a 1-for-1 swap, because the salaries kind of meet that. I'd do that. You get a good shooter in Anunoby, a guy that's killed the Celtics before in the past. But yeah, there's definitely some questions. I'm with you. The right deal, I think I would do Bradley Beal. I've kind of come off him a little bit. Like you said, I think that ship has maybe sailed, but it's really going to come down to, do you, like Windhorst said, do you want to extend Brown? And then if you do, can you make all three of these salaries work? And if, that comes to be the case, then what does the rest of the team look like with all the new CBA stuff coming down the pipeline? Like, the Celtics are going to be one of those big market teams that gets hit by all the changes. Can you build a competitive team around those three guys? It's probably going to be incredibly tough to do that and stay under, the tax without having to pay all the penalties.
Yeah, that's where my hesitation kind of lies.
Mm-hmm. Plus, then I saw too, like, Miami's going to be a team that's, going to be big on him. And obviously Miami coming off a finals appearance, that's going to maybe want a guy like Bradley Beal. That's the interesting thing. He's one of I think the only guys in the NBA that has this clause in his trade, in his contract that I saw, where he can pretty much pick where he wants to go and what it's going to be for. So he has a lot of say in this, obviously, like the Shams tweet said. If Miami comes calling on him, I don't think he'd have, would be opposed at all to going and playing for a team that just made the finals. No state income tax with the contract and everything. So that's a team to watch out for. I saw Milwaukee too could be involved. So the Celtics, unless they want to try to beat out some of their conference rivals, I think maybe might pass on this one, but it'll definitely be interesting to keep an eye on.
Yeah, definitely. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm. No worries. You're good.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
I just hope this rain is not coming. Can you hear the rain hitting the roof on? Can you? Okay. I say I'm right next to the window. I can't really go anywhere else in here. Hopefully that's not annoying to people. But NBA Finals thoughts. I talked for a little bit. Any thoughts that you had overall on the finals? Maybe, the play, or just any storylines that kind of came out from under it. You have one of the more funnier ones, I think, that a lot of people kind of share the same mindset.
Yeah, my biggest thing is how Jokic handled it. He just wanted none of it.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, okay, we won. A lot of people hate their jobs, even if they say they don't.
Mm-hmm.
He was just like, yeah, cool. I won this.
Yep.
The like champagne where he took the smallest sip ever and then just put it down.
I was done with it.
Like, yeah, it's whatever. This is cool.
Did you see they asked him about the parade? Yeah, he asked him about the parade either yesterday or today, and he was like, "Oh, really? Like, I just wanted to go home and basically see my horses and everything." So he's a weird dude, but I mean, when you're as great as a player as he, I watched a video the other day of Celtics Isaiah Thomas, not Pistons Isaiah Thomas. He had a chance to play with Jokic a little bit when he was, with Denver. I think on one of those 10-day contracts, and he had a funny story where he said basically that, Jokic, he said Jokic doesn't hate playing basketball, but the attitude he gives off is I got to come to work and do this. I'm so good at this that I just got to show up and can drop 30 points on a whim. That's kind of the mindset he gives off, but it was a little weird to see. It was also, like you said, very funny that he's just basically yeah, I did the whole thing, did the damn thing, and now I just I don't want to be here anymore. Can I leave, please?
Yeah, he's a mysterious guy,
mm-hmm.
and it works. So
absolutely,
harp on it for it.
No, my kind of takeaways are one of them is Jokic related. I think with this win, he kind of I think he did solidify himself as a Hall of Famer. You know, has the 2 MVPs, has an NBA Finals, has an NBA Finals MVP. So he is, you know, collected a little bit of what's the word I want? Not jewelry,
Hardware.
but you know what I get here. Yeah, it's hardware. Thank you. So I think he definitely solidified himself as a Hall of Famer. Doing this all before the age of 30. So good on him. The other one, because I, you know, tend to lean more towards the negative side of things. Just a little bit of this finals that I watched, I was able to see some of the stat lines and everything and how it developed. If you're a Celtics fan and a player more so, if, you know, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, if they sat down and watched any of this finals, I think that they should be very aggravated with how this finals went down. Just because of how Denver just made Miami look. Like it looked like boys against men out there for most of this series. Just diving into the stats really quick. Against the Celtics, Miami shot 47% from the field, 43% from deep, and 82% from the line. You know, a little over that. Against the Nuggets, though, Miami shot 40.7% from the field, so that's a 7% drop off. 34.3 from deep and 85.7 from the line. And then pretty much all of Miami's players, you know, star guys that beat up the Celtics, pretty much fell off a cliff. Jimmy Butler disappeared in Game 5. I'm curious to see if he'll get, you know, the same amount of flack that Tatum caught with the finals performance last year. Bam was really the only one that had a good series. He had, you know, just under 15 points against the Celtics, but had 21 points against Denver. Caleb Martin, Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, Duncan Robinson, all guys that, you know, were talked about. How many times do we hear, you know, these undrafted guys playing so great in the Eastern Conference Finals? They all looked like undrafted guys, a bunch of undrafted bums in the finals. Caleb Martin, 19.3 points per game in the Eastern Conference Finals, finishes with just 7.4 in the finals. Gabe Vincent, 15.8, goes to 11.4. Max Strus, who, you know, Miami Heat fans were clowning the Celtics. Oh, you got rid of this guy. He's so great. 9.4 points per game in the Eastern Conference Finals, shot 41% from the field and 34% from deep. In the finals, 5.8 points, a whopping 23.3 from the field and 18.8% from three in the NBA Finals. That's a stat line of a real great player you got there, Miami. And then Duncan Robinson, 11.4 points per game to 7.8. So all of Miami's players wilted in the NBA Finals. And like I said, I'm very curious to see if they will continue to be talked about as this great, you know, Heat culture team, you know, this great, you know, fight team, and, you know, they do everything right, or if they're going to get it flamed like the Celtics did in with their finals performance last year. But like I said, it's aggravating from a Celtics fan standpoint. Like if you just show a little bit of effort in, you know, games 1, 2, or 7, you should have been able to beat this team. You should have been able to at least give Denver a series. Like, I don't know if, you know, the Celtics would have been able to beat Denver with how Jokic and Murray played in the finals, and even Aaron Gordon. But it was just frustrating to watch that. I'm sure for you, if you caught any of it as well, or just kind of knowing what I threw out here, like the Celtics, as we know, blew a massive opportunity to, you know, get to another finals and potentially win. Like, it would have been a much better series. Again, I don't know if they would have beat Denver, but just like the fact that you were not there and Miami looked as bad as they did just because Denver was able to put the clamps on them was very frustrating to see from a Celtics point of view.
Yeah, and I don't think Jimmy Butler's performance in the finals will be magnified as much because it's just not as big of a market.
True.
I think that contributes to it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, the spark just ran out for Strus and Vincent in particular. And that sucks, but I mean, you have to give the Nuggets credit too. It wasn't
absolutely
just them flaming out. It's, you know, the Nuggets were, you know, built for it better than I'd say the Celtics and the Heat. I don't think the Celtics would have beat the Nuggets. But you know, it's whatever. Shit happens. Just hope it fuels them next year because, you know, I have no doubts that they'll be in a position to go back to the finals next year. So
they are, I think, the second
super
highest
down
betting
about it.
favorite. I think it's Denver 1, Celtics 2 to get back there. So there is some hope for that. The other thing too, like on the flip side of the negative is, you know, Denver too did have these years, you know, with Jokic and Murray where, you know, they underperformed. Obviously, Murray got hurt a couple playoff runs that really derailed things for them. So it was really just Jokic trying to do it himself. But Denver did stick with their core. You know, their core two guys, Jokic and Murray. You know, they had to get there a couple times, know what it was like to lose, and then finally got over the hump. So maybe that's something that's a positive for the Celtics. You know, if you know, as you get further into the Tatum and Brown thing, maybe, you know, next year. Again, we always kind of have been saying this. You know, maybe it's going to be next year that they finally break through. But you know, there are some similarities with Denver and the Celtics that maybe are some positive you can take away, and, you know, try to hold out some hope that maybe next year is the year that these two guys for the Celtics finally are able to break through.
If both the guys are even there. We'll see.
Exactly. That's a good point too. And if things drastically change, then maybe we'll have something different to talk about. But you hope, like, that's why it's so tough too. It's like you want to say like, oh, run it back, do it again, but God forbid you don't win. Now you maybe have missed a chance to trade Jaylen Brown at his full value. Now going into that, do you give him the extension year? Like you have to obviously pay him, or he's going to hit the open market. You have a little bit of leeway this year. Some other guys' contracts might be up too. So time's a ticking, but we will see if, how the rest of the offseason goes. Now we're probably going to finally get some more free agency stuff, maybe not just coaching additions. So I'm sure that kind of stuff will heat up as time goes on. And then, of course, the draft. What are the Celtics going to do with pick, I think, 35 they have? That's not until obviously the end of the month. We'll talk about that when, the time comes.
Yep. Agreed. Fair points.
Thank you.
But it is the off season, so we'll see what happens next and wait for the draft and stuff.
Yep.
Wait for a suspension for John Morant.
That's true too. Yeah, I was kind of
hoping.
not hoping, but it would have been funny. I saw obviously all the memes that were like, "Oh, the NBA Finals is over, so here's where John Morant's suspension is going to land him, 50 games, whatever it was going to be." So obviously, I can't imagine we're going to have to wait too long for that. Like it seemed like the NBA wanted to get that out there pretty quick. How long he's going to be gone for?
Yeah, but we'll have to wait and see. Stanley Cup Finals wrapped up. We have back-to-back first champions ever. We have the Nuggets and the Golden Knights. The Golden Knights trounced the Florida Panthers last night in 5
This game couldn't have went in a better way. Really,
9-3. Which is funny because if anybody, is entrenched in hockey Twitter like I am, you saw Heat Daddy was at the game, and he said 9-0 final before the game started. He was close.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Who would have thunk it? He did also say Keegan Colasar would score a double hat trick. So Keegan Colasar did not score 1 goal, but he was tanked. So even when he was tanked, he got the number of Golden Knights
pretty
goals
close,
right.
Yeah.
Maybe the only person in the world to legitimately predict 9 goals for the Golden Knights and be correct. They dominated the Panthers last night. The Panthers stuck around a little bit, but Sergei Bobrovsky went back to Sergei Butitsky mode. The defense was not good, and it was too little, too late in an epic fashion. Bill Foley, president, said playoffs in 3 years, cup in 6, and he got the cup in 6. So pretty impressive.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have one of the original misfits get the Conn Smythe, the first undrafted player to win it since Wayne Gretzky in 1988. As a former Bruins winning cups, Phil Kessel with number 3, Riley Smith with his first, and of course, Bruce Cassidy with number 1. I will say this.
Spite.
I think the people that are like, oh, it would have been different if Bruce Cassidy were here are just wrong. I think they're plain wrong. No matter what David Krejci says, I don't think he would have come back if Bruce was around. I think Jake DeBrusk would have upheld his trade request, and his team could have looked a lot different. Could it have worked? Yeah, of course. But the message was getting stale. They made a move they felt they needed to make, and they have a good coaching situation right now. It didn't end well, but I think this pouring on instead of just, being happy for Bruce is kind of lame, but it's also, it's just how sports fans operate. It doesn't really that doesn't really strike a chord in my head. It's just like they did what they felt they had to do. It worked really good for Vegas, not as well for the Bruins. That's about it. This team would have looked a lot different if Bruce Cassidy was still around.
I just think we probably agree with you on this. It looks so much worse though. At the first year he's gone, in a team that couldn't get over the hump before, had gotten close. As soon as they bring him in, everything changes. I mean, you heard it. Who was the player last night for Vegas that said his coaching style is basically what got us here? It wasn't Eichel. I can't remember who it was.
Like intensity or something. I think it was Stone.
Yep, exactly. So again, I don't know if you probably don't agree with it, but I've heard, people to argue that maybe the Bruins, the front office, gives a little too much power. We heard this throughout the season a little bit, when maybe we talked about it when Bergeron was telling Montgomery that I'm going to play regardless. So maybe, the Bruins maybe a little too known for giving the power to the players instead of the coach, stuff like that. That's kind of where I come from. It's and I talked about this when they fired Bruce Cassidy. It's all right, it shows how soft this team is that, you're letting guys like DeBrusk and Krejci at the end of his career make these decisions over a head coach. It's had some pretty good success with his team. I don't disagree with you that maybe the message got stale. And I don't disagree with you that things probably looked a little differently. But again, as we know, for the spite reasons for me, like I just find it hilarious that first year gone, you go out, can't get over, can't close a team out. Like that was the thing too. It was everything that the Bruins couldn't do in this. Vegas has a chance to close a series out against a far, inferior team, and they just absolutely blow doors at home off them. Like that's the thing too that stings as well, is like they had the same situation the Bruins had. Bruins couldn't close it out. Florida just completely kicked doors in, and then that was the end of it. Or not Florida, excuse me. Vegas just blew the roof off the building.
Yeah, they did. All fair points.
Thank you.
I don't.
I get where you're coming from. Like I know we're not at the opposite ends of things a lot, but this is one I think we're on different sides.
I don't like how people do like this revision. Like that's their first mindset is to go like, oh, they would have won with Bruce Cassidy. No, they probably wouldn't.
You don't know exactly. Yep.
Like it's such like a shaky crutch to stand on. Like, but people just like to get their takes off.
True.
I feel a little bit different than the consensus, but
it's also another thing too. I feel like
I'm just happy for Bruce, and
I am too. I don't get me wrong.
They deserved it. Like they were very consistent. They didn't, shy away in the big moments when they needed a big game. They got it pretty much every time. Jack Eichel was phenomenal.
He was excellent.
Aiden Hill was so good, which is crazy. They got him for a 4th-round pick. Jonathan Marchessault scored big goal after big goal. Their defense was very stout, and they were just clutch. They earned it. They were clutch. And I didn't think they were going to do it, but I'm not surprised that they did.
No, the other point I was going to make too is like for the crutch thing you said. I think it's another easy shot at, as we've done from time to time. It's an easy shot at guys like Don Sweeney and Cam Neely. Decision making process and the head scratching stuff, like letting this guy go, and then again he goes on wins. So like it's another reason to pile on them. And again, like I keep coming back to it. For all the reasons you just mentioned as well, the toughness of Vegas and being able to get things done. It's, to me, and I feel like a decent amount of people, it's the opposite of the Bruins. Like we talked about it when they lost. Like this team comes off as soft and not being able to, get over the hump. Vegas showed you they did that, and I think that goes a long way for, Bruce Cassidy and his coaching style with this team.
Yeah, I agree. But it is a bit of a layered argument, as we've discussed.
Absolutely. Yep.
Of course, as what happens after various playoff rounds, and especially the Stanley Cup, we got the injuries coming out. Nothing from Vegas, but I mean they're partying, so like I understand why we haven't really heard anything.
Yeah, all the boos I think are gonna maybe soften the blows and the injuries and the bruises.
Exactly. Also, congratulations to my good friend Kaylee Allard. Saw her lifting the cup with the assistance of one of the other staff members I don't know the name of, Mark Stone. After the game, that was pretty cool. She was out with them last night, so congrats to her. First year with the Golden Knights, she's a Cup champion. So I don't know, maybe she had the magic.
Good luck and then some. Absolutely.
I mean, pretty cool. Like I tweeted at her earlier. Her profile picture is her with the cup. I was like, congratulations, you have your profile picture for the rest of your life.
Huge brag. Yeah, absolutely.
Like never have to change it. But the Panthers were dealing with quite a bit of injuries. Matthew Tkachuk most recently sustained an injury on that big hit from Keegan Colasar, had 4 cracked ribs and a broken sternum. That kept him out last night.
I don't know how you function with that.
Yeah, I don't know.
I saw a thing. Did you see the tweet that said like I think it was his brother basically had to help him off the couch for his pregame nap or whatever? Well, that's insane.
See, the insane thing about that is that he came back in the last game.
Yeah, hockey player. You know it yourself. You're a hockey player.
I get it.
Crazy motherfuckers are built differently.
Yeah, freaking psychotic. I imagine Brady's having a lot of fun too. He likes to tear it up with the drinking, from what I've heard and seen. Aaron Ekblad broke his foot against the Bruins, had 2 separate shoulder separations and a torn oblique. And Brandon Montour played through a torn labrum, and now he likely needs surgery and will be out for 3 months. So those are the big ones.
Price you pay, trying to win a cup.
Probably others, I would imagine. So.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that. Absolutely.
I truly don't understand how you skate on a broken foot.
I don't know either. Like
Hampus Lindholm did it too. I do not understand how it is physically possible.
As long as I don't know, like I mean, you're putting pressure on it regardless, but like maybe you're just not pushing off on it. Like I don't know. I'm with you. I'm not a doctor. I can't even imagine. Concept. No.
It's crazy.
God forbid you just catch a stray puck or off that same, like that's got to hurt like a bitch.
Yeah. Oh my God. From Mike T. Gould on Twitter, this really means nothing. It's just a
It's funny
funny
to look at.
coincidence. The
Absolutely.
Oilers selected first overall in 2010, 2011, 2012, and 2015. The 4 players selected second in each of those drafts have now won Stanley Cups. Tyler Seguin with the Bruins, Gabriel Landeskog last year with the Avs, Ryan Murray also last year with the Avs, and now Jack Eichel. And Jack Eichel has won a Stanley Cup before Connor McDavid. Very wild.
Connor McDavid's like, can't harp on it enough. Sounds like a broken record. He's the Mike Trout of hockey, and
Just
the
more
Oilers are the
pressure,
Angels. Like,
more motivation he needs. Like,
absolutely.
he's got to get one soon.
You would have to hope. I mean, again, you wouldn't want a talent like not wasted, because I mean the talent's not wasted, obviously, but like the fact that you don't want him to go down as one of those guys, one of the greats that never wins a cup, like has all these records, potentially all these, awards. I'm with you that, like, again, that doesn't really matter to me, the stat itself.
Yeah.
But it is funny that, like, it's not, the second pick this year, the 5th pick, and it's just 4 straight years, like you said, of the number 2 overall pick being the guy that's won it, which is kind of insane. Like, I'm sure if you ask the Bruins fans, they'll argue like, the Bruins screwed up those 3 picks in a row. Like, they would probably be like, the Oilers screwed up 4 picks in a row. Like, they should have drafted all these guys number 1, because people act stupid like that.
Yeah. But yeah, if McDavid wins, just don't do it against the Bruins, and I'll be fine with it.
Yeah, it's exactly
Reasonable ask.
Win as many as you want starting next year. Just don't do it against the Bruins.
Exactly. Some other NHL news: Damon Severson. I think maybe it was Friday or Thursday last week. His draft rights were traded to Columbus for pick 80, which was from Calgary. For the signing rights to Severson and the 8-year contract he received, 8 by 50. Pretty fair, maybe a little bit of an overpay, but he's a pretty good offensive defenseman, and pretty solid overall more often than not. Solid in his own zone, but he's one of those guys. The popular thing with him was like when he messes up royally. So you just have to live with that if you're Columbus. They're very serious about upgrading that blue line, getting Provorov and a Damon Severson within 2 weeks. Pretty nuts. And the Ottawa Senators had a catastrophe potentially on their hands with Steve Apostolopoulos backing out of buying the team over frustrations with negotiation length. But Michael Andlauer bought the team. It's not official yet. It has to go to the board of governors and everything. But it's set to buy the team for $950 million US, with Eugene Melnick's kids retaining 10% of the franchise. Michael Andlauer, for anybody who doesn't know, because I didn't know, so I figured I'd throw a couple of facts about him out there. He's been in the Canadian transportation industry for 35 years. He's the owner of the OHL's Brantford Bulldogs, recently the Hamilton Bulldogs that changed their name. He's the president and CEO of Andlauer Management Group, which owns ATS Healthcare and Acoustics, and has been a minority owner of the Habs since 2009. So I don't know how Senators fans feel about that.
Yeah.
But he owns 2 Canadian teams now, so the guy's got a lot of money.
Get that money, absolutely.
Yeah. Steve Apostolopoulos is in Toronto, but he's a Greek man. He's the managing partner of the real estate firm Triple Group of companies, the founder of the private equity firm Six Ventures, and the co-founder of the credit card firm Carey. Good for the Senators, I guess. They didn't get Ryan Reynolds or Snoop Dogg, but they get a Canadian billionaire. So
that works.
Somebody's got to buy the team, and
whoever's got the most money. Yeah,
exactly. You just got to have a lot of money. You hope it works out for their sake. A big sigh of relief for them in what's been a fairly long process. Peter Laviolette is the latest retread to be hired again. He will now coach 5 of the 8 Metropolitan Division teams.
That's ridiculous.
Can't wait till he gets fired in 2 years and goes to another one. He joins the Rangers as their head coach. I believe he was with them at some point in the past, a while ago. I could be wrong. He's on a 3-year deal at just under $5 million per year. He got paid. I like Laviolette. I think he's stern and thorough, but he's one of those guys, kind of has a short fuse with young players at times, and they have some young players that need ice time. So if you're Alexis Lafreniere, Capo Caco, you might not be super thrilled with this hire, but we'll see what happens. Still love the hire, but I definitely think they could have done worse by
Mhm.
hiring Joe Quenneville, which they almost, at least tried to do, which would have been a PR nightmare. But I think you could do worse, but I also think you could do a lot better than Peter Laviolette. And the last NHL note, with the season over, one of the big deadlines coming up is the NHL buyout window. It opens on Friday, closes on June 30th at 5 p.m. And the qualifying offer deadline is June 30th at 5 p.m. too. So Bruins have a good deal of qualifying offers as well as the rest of teams to send out unless they want guys to become unrestricted free agents.
Mhm.
So that's going to wrap it up for NHL news. Unless you have anything else to add, we'll get to DeAndre Hopkins news and stuff.
Now the Laviolette thing's funny to me. I didn't know that until you put it in the outline that he's coached. I didn't realize that he's coached that many teams in the division. I know it doesn't mean anything to those other teams, but like at what point, if you're like, say, like you said, he does get fired in 2 years. Like, at what point do you, maybe this isn't working? Like, this guy doesn't coach well in the division. Like, why?
It'll never happen.
That's
until
what I
they
mean. Like,
retire.
yeah, I just don't get it. It happens in every sport too. Like you're seeing in the NBA, coaches getting thrown around, the same guys.
Do you hear the rain right now in my apartment?
Yeah, slightly. It's not as bad as it
God.
was in mine, but
It's crazy right
yeah.
now.
Oh, that's what I mean. It blew through mine in like 10,
Holy
15 minutes, and now it's I don't think it's doing anything outside, thankfully. But now it's your turn to have the rain in the
Yeah.
background.
It's monsoon levels right now.
Mhm.
The Patriots, DeAndre Hopkins,
Please do this. Please, for the love of
maybe
God.
maybe a Patriot. Looks like it's trending pretty positively. He's meeting today and tomorrow. I hope it's not raining in Foxborough or wherever they are right now.
Mhm.
Just for convenience sake for him
Put a
and whoever
damper on
he's hanging
things,
out
yeah.
with.
Mhm.
But the Patriots are on the verge of potentially getting the best wide receiver they've had since Randy Moss from a
I'm
pure
very
talent standpoint.
This has me very excited and very positive, and it's kind of scaring me because I haven't felt this way about the Patriots in a long time. So I don't want to like this. Like to say it would be heartbreaking is a bit of a probably over dramatic, but like the fact that
It would be pretty heartbreaking at this
it
point.
would, because like at first when obviously the reports came out, when you first started hearing the rumblings about Hopkins and all the teams that were involved, it's like, oh, Kansas City's involved, Buffalo's involved. I thought maybe it wasn't Denver, but there was another big team that you're like, all right, there's no chance the Patriots are able to even get a chance to look at this guy. He's probably going to just go ring chase and sign with one of those two teams or one, the fact that they're getting two meetings and like you said, it seems to be going well for what, or I don't know if it's going well. I know the Tennessee one was very positive, which to me really quick, like if you're him, I get it's Tennessee, like I'm sure Nashville is pretty cool. I've always wanted to go. If you're him, that is such a waste of a talent on that team. Like the amount of, I think we talked about it the other day, the amount of wide receiver talent the Titans have wasted over the years from the aforementioned Randy Moss, as you said, AJ Brown, Julio Jones, who I know was at the end of his career, but still a big enough name. And Robert Woods, not a superstar wide receiver, but a solid wide receiver guy you should be able to factor into your offense pretty good. And again, the fact that Tennessee throws the ball like 20, 25 times a game. Like I know that you get an offer, you maybe want to go meet with the team just to see what they're going to say to you. I don't know why he would go there. Like there's so many reasons to not play there. Again, like I had this discussion the other day with a buddy of mine. It's like, I know they're not the two greatest quarterbacks. Would you rather catch a pass from Ryan Tannehill or Mac Jones? So like
Or Will Levis.
Or Will Levis, exactly. Tennessee's got less of a known quarterback than the Patriots do right now. So if I'm him, the meeting was nice in Tennessee, went well. Thanks, but no thanks. I'm going to take my talents elsewhere. The Jeff Howe tweet today too was good to see. Said that, quote, there's optimism, the two sides being the Patriots and Hopkins, that the two sides can find a way to reach an agreement. So that's great to see too. And then just on the Patriots side of things too, they might really need him with the wide receiver injuries that have apparently piled up. Tyquan Thornton is dealing with a soft tissue injury, according to Mike Reese. And the one that scares me is Juju Smith-Schuster, who again, maybe tied into the Red Sox. Like, why wasn't the background check done on Juju Smith-Schuster? Is still nursing a knee injury he suffered in the AFC title game last year against Cincinnati. That kind of worries me. Like the guy has not seemingly done anything this offseason to get acclimated with the Patriots, has not been on the field because he can't get on the field because of injuries. Like this could be, or if the injury tends to linger to him real quick on him. You could be looking back, why make this signing? Why give him the money and not like just give it a Jacoby Myers type of thing? But on Hopkins, like this is a move that makes so much sense for so many reasons. Like you have to find a way to get this done.
Yeah, and from a Patriots Titans perspective too, the Patriots have around double the cap space the Titans have right
They've
now.
got the most out of from everything I've seen. The Patriots can offer him the most money. So if like I would go pretty close to what you can offer, like the most amount of money you have left under the cap to give him, because like, and then they open up a roster spot. Apparently, they released James Robinson, which was interesting to see.
And they opened up 2 roster spots. They released Tay Hayes as well.
So, oh, did they? I didn't see that one. Okay, so
I believe they might have some interest in DJ Fluker too. So maybe they bring him in as well for tackle depth. Defensive tackle, of course, being. You have to do this. Like at this point, you're the de facto number 1. It sounds like, you have to do this, and whether it's Kendrick Bourne or Devontae Parker that pays the price and gets released or traded, so be it. And Devontae Parker doesn't sound super thrilled about it.
I was going to say, I wonder if it may be leaning more towards Parker in that sense, because he was not a happy camper.
Like, you think he'd be excited. I don't know. Maybe they caught him on the wrong day, but I mean, Kendrick Bourne would be tough for him too, because he's been all like positive, like talking about the Super Bowl. If DeAndre Hopkins comes here on Instagram, like
that would be kicking the pants.
Training videos, like fired up, hanging out with Mac and the boys. I don't know. It'd be tough either way, but if it has to happen, it has to happen. It's friggin' DeAndre Hopkins. So
absolutely,
I'm glad that things are trending positively. I hope to God there isn't like a mystery team lingering out there. Because that's the one thing that worries me. Because in any sport,
somebody sneaking in late.
Lawrence Guy is a guy that I did not expect to see any potential contract dispute with, because he seems like a pretty mild-mannered guy. He's known for his I think he's won like multiple community involvement, like community service awards. But the guy
he's been nominated for a bunch. I know that.
He's like 33. I guess he just wants a bump in what could be his last contract.
Yeah, it is a weird situation. Like, because I'm with you. Like, he does not seem like a guy that is outspoken about this type of stuff. Like you said, community service award winner in 2021. I think he was either last year or a couple of years ago. He was a Walter Payton finalist too, wasn't he? At some point, I think. I might be wrong about that, but
so, yeah.
Team captain in 2020, was voted to the Patriots 2010s all-decade team. So a guy that's got plenty of accomplishments with the Patriots. But that's an interesting point. I didn't really even think of that. The point you just brought up about, wanting a pay raise and what could be his last contract. On the flip side of that, I've seen some people argue, like, what are you complaining for? You're only in the second year of an extension you signed. I did see he switched agents or agencies or whatever. So maybe that's something that, maybe brought it up. Someone was in his ear saying, hey, you can get more money. You should ask for it. Does have a base salary of $2 million remaining for this year and next year. So I feel like he's in a tough spot. I heard Zolak talk about this the other day on Zolak and Bertrand, where he kind of brought up the point where it's like, you got a lot of young guys on this team. You're 33 years old, as you mentioned. Like, is making a contract gripe at this point in your career the right situation? Like, I know you've done a lot of good things with this team, but we've seen how cold Bill Belichick can be in getting rid of guys and cutting guys no matter what they've done for this team. So is, this a spot where Lawrence Guy wants to hold out? Like, you hope he, can kind of some sort of agreement, because he's been a very good Patriot in his time here. 2017 to 2022, 91 starts in 93 games, 341 tackles, 10.5 sacks, 1 pick, 1 forced fumble, and 4 fumble recoveries. He's been better than I think a lot of people expected him to be when the Patriots, first signed him. At least for me, he was. So it's a tough spot for him to be in right now. You hope, like I said, they were able to figure something out. But again, contract dispute at this point in his career, I don't know if that's the best thing for him, with, the Patriots maybe wanting to get younger at the position and have, a decent amount of depth where they could just say, we'll move on from you and, cut bait.
Yeah, I guess so. Like I said, it's just not a guy I expected something like this to come up with. The guy I am not surprised that he's being a little weird about stuff like this is Trent Brown, because he's kind of done this for a while now. Did it last year, likes tweeting the cryptic emojis, did it again today with the
just gonna say the same thing. Took the words right out of my mouth.
Like, I'm so sick of his attitude to a large extent, because dude,
this is where you wish they did something substantial at the position, so they could have just been like, all right, if you're gonna pull this crap again, goodbye. Yeah. Like, we will cut your ass, because like you said, you have been a problem the last couple of years. And
I like him, but he does this every once in a while. And he's a good player for the most part, but God, it's so dramatic.
I saw, again, listening to Zolak and Bertrand, I don't know if you have any overall thoughts on the, not excuse, because maybe it was true, but he did use the when he missed the first day of practice when he was unable to get there because his flight was canceled. I heard Zolak bring up That, of course, Malcolm Butler, the infamous year where he got benched in the Super Bowl. I think he had said at some point during that year, he used the same excuse, and the Patriots kind of held that against him, being like, well, why could you get a sooner flight? Again, I don't know how much you read into the flight stuff. But then he was at the first day of OTAs and missed the remaining days there. Did attend the other day, the mandatory practices, but didn't do any drills or anything. So there is, and like you said today, had the cryptic, the tweet